Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor. I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Today I wanted to just give you a heads up on something that I'm going to be doing in the future on the channel. And ultimately, I've mentioned before that one of the main areas that I went into coaching with and so on and so forth was dating and like relationships and confidence and things like that. And it's something that I've been considering for a while because obviously dating is a huge thing to a huge number of people, and not just dating but relationships, and both in the short and the long term, and how they work, how you can get into one, how best to act when you are in one, and so on and so forth. You know, it's such a huge and vast topic that is so core to our species as a whole. You know, without that part of who we are, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have the human species. We wouldn't have reproduced. We wouldn't have collected together in the large groups that we have. We wouldn't have the kind of social structures and things that are continuing to develop over the years as we move into an age of greater technology and greater communication between people. And as a result, the first thing that I wanted to do with this, before I go off into the big topic stuff and just keep going and going and going with it, because there is so much in the topic that is you know, it's one of the most complicated and simple and difficult and easy things, and yet because it covers literally the whole spectrum from any one side to the other of any axis that you could apply to this, you know, I wanted to take a step back and go, well, okay, where am I coming from with this? You know, the same way that when I first started the channel, I wanted to get to know you guys and discuss this with you guys a little bit more before I started going off and talking about topics. And so, you know, my basic overview of me in regards to relationships was when I was a kid. I was, as I've said before, not particularly confident. I wasn't particularly sociable. I had a very small group of close friends, and beyond that, there really wasn't, you know, much else. You know, I didn't have. I had crushes on people. I would make a fool of myself in attempts to gain their attention or whatever else. But what it comes down to is when it all boiled down, I was still very much alone. I found it quite hard to not just relate to, but also kind of communicate and sort my thoughts out around the people that I found attractive, to an extent that, you know, silence was easier, but silence was also unnerving for those people around me. And so, you know, there was a big space where I was in terms of certain forms of companionship, especially romantic companionship, right up until kind of early adulthood, end of my teens. I was very lonely. And then I realised that I could be confident. I could at the very least fake it until I actually felt comfortable in the situation. And then I went from one side of being incredibly shy, not approaching anyone, you know, only sticking to my friends, to the complete opposite. I became very uncaring. I would distance myself from my friends whenever I was looking for affection because they were, to an extent, neutering. To an extent, they knew me too well. You know, there wasn't. I couldn't play off things that I could potentially just kind of bring out of myself in the moment, when around others I would worry about being judged by my closest friends, or I'd worry about the feedback that I would get afterwards in some way, shape or form. And I went complete opposite end of the spectrum. I became a pretty horrible person in various ways, and as a result, whilst I then gained more attention and I was more comfortable with the interactions, it became very boring because I had made sure that I didn't care. I distanced myself enough and made myself emotionally numb to the extent that I was still very lonely, even though I was getting physical attention, I was getting emotional attention in various different ways and at various different times from various different people. It still didn't really amount to anything for me. It became kind of almost colour by numbers, and it became very dull. And that was when I kind of had some really tough stuff happen in my life, and I kind of distanced myself from it again because I realised how negative that experience had been, and distanced myself. I really wanted to put a gap between who I was at that point and who I wanted to be. It was, the first couple of times that I had sat down and actually gone, well, actually that wasn't who I wanted to be. Where am I going? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What do I want to look like? How do I want to act? And again, most of those thoughts were completely brought on from the beginnings or ends of relationships and how things had panned out and so on and so forth. And as a result, they were growing experiences. And yet again, if this wasn't such a big part of our culture and of our makeup as living organisms, then I wouldn't have been able to sit down and have that realization. I probably would have just been lonely and kind of secluded for a very long period if we didn't have this drive towards these kind of things. And I went for a very long time of kind of like being attracted to people and socializing with them, but not really engaging them romantically. There were a couple that came close because there was a lot of mutual affection, but for the most part, that distance was maintained for a very long time. It got to a point where I was also I was being quite fussy. I was making sure that the people that I was interacting with on that kind of level were would fit certain criteria, and they would be criteria for both kind of how what I would genuinely be attracted to in regards to preferences and where how much wiggle room there was, but also in regards to like what I would expect from a person who I would have as close to me as possible and knowing most about me. And that again took some time for me to work out and then get more comfortable with and develop into the kind of patterns of behavior that I now use with my current girlfriend, and the fact that we've been together now for several years, and it's kind of there was that span. But in the middle of that span, when I first started trying to work out kind of who I was and where I was, I started my coaching. I was talking to other coaches about all kinds of things. Especially when I was going off for my training days for my qualifications. On the way back, on numerous occasions, I would end up having discussions with some of the other coaches on the train back into or around London, and we'd be having the conversations very much around things like confidence, around work, around relationships, around how things worked in those kind of realms. And then one thing led to another with that, and I got to a case where there was myself and a couple of other coaches, and we were doing some experiments, and we were from all over the place, and we started doing experiments with kind of what we thought worked, what we thought didn't work, information that we had found from other more better known coaches from around the place that I'm sure I'll reference in other videos. And we started doing experiments as well with online dating and stuff like that, just to see how it would work, what kind of profiles would work, which sites were better than others, how we could help clients with kind of the right questions to ask. What questions were we asking ourselves when we were putting these together, and which questions were we asking that then gave us the realizations and the awareness that gained the results we wanted. It was picking apart papers on the ins and outs of human behavior and things like that in regards to relationships and so on, to make sure that we knew what we were talking about and what potential kind of grounding and evidence there would be for us to talk about with clients and stuff like that, you know. Um, and as a result, you know, after that, and in fact during the time that I was just finishing off some of those experiments, I met my girlfriend, have been with my girlfriend for, as I said, a good couple of years by now, and you know there were of course the conversations there of, you know, why were there online dating apps on my phone and all the rest of it, and making sure that situation where I was going from potentially a very wide open environment to a much smaller one, how to try and deal with that with friends, how to deal with that with family, how to have the conversation and work everything out with Hannah, and so on and so forth. You know, there were a lot of different moving parts throughout the whole time, from like me as a lonely kid up until me now in a happy long-term relationship. And you know, all of these moving parts relate to so many different things, you know, and as a result, it being such a huge topic, it's a case of, if the way I see it is, if I, a nerdy, unattractive, quiet, kind of hard to talk to kid, can sort myself out, have these realizations, gain as much or as little affection as I wanted over time, and work all of those things out, and now get to a place where I'm really happy, then anyone can. And as a result, though, I realised that there are going to be lots of people who don't have those experiences, or don't have the awareness, or haven't had the right questions or the right experiences just yet for these realizations to come. And that's one of the one of the reasons why, rather, I want to put these videos out there, and to go through everything that I went through, all the different topics, all the different areas, how best to deal with them, some tools and tips and things that I've come across through coaching that will maybe better inform, allow you a monitor on yourself, allow you a better idea of how certain things work, and stuff like that, just so that way, you know, the big, lonely, overpopulated world that we live in at the moment, where everyone is talking to their phone but never talking to one another, and where finding a partner can be incredibly hard due to the pressures that you're under from various places and various things. You know, it's one of these things where I want to take all the stuff that I've come across, all the stuff that I've seen, all the stuff that I've worked with and know, and my own personal experience as well, throw it all together and put it out to you guys. And so, you know, one of the things that I want to ask you guys straight off the bat, and there's a good chance that, you know, there are going to be a lot of questions and things that all line up in a similar kind of fashion, but what are the questions that you have? What things would you like to know about relationships, dating, to a degree, sex, and the way to handle it, the way to handle the day-to-day, because obviously the snapshot on kind of romance, as I mentioned in other videos, or as I'll mention in other videos rather, the snapshot of kind of the Disney romance, the fairy tale romance, is very condensed. You know, it's that movie, that story, it takes place over like a week or a couple of days, and then it's the rest of the day-to-day life that is important, you know. So are your questions going to be more about how to handle those kind of things, or how to handle you know, all those awkward feelings and the anxiety and the fear of judgment and stuff like that? You know, there are so many things that are out there to discuss on this, but I want to know what you guys want to talk about first, because obviously I'm gonna go through certain things earlier than others so I can build on it, but I want to know what you guys want to kind of focus on and have as a good set of building blocks and ideas for me to kind of span things out across. Excuse me. But anyway, if you guys have at all liked the sound of what I'm looking to do here, then please, you know, subscribe for more. If there are other people that you think could maybe use this, please share this video with them. Otherwise, drop me a like if this sounds good to you. Drop me your suggestions and your ideas and what you would like to know down in the comments. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video tomorrow. Take care, guys.